In the previous video, we saw how inductive plethysmography could be employed to record the respiratory movements used by singers. This video will demonstrate how displaying the information in the form of Konno-Mead diagrams can make it easier to interpret. First, however, we will examine an important feature of the respiratory traces that we will encounter later on in the Konno-Mead diagrams. Here are the traces we have seen before. You will notice that each breath starts with a sharp peak, after which both the chest and the abdominal traces initially fall very rapidly. If we mark the onset of the voice, we can see that this peak precedes the beginning of the sound. It represents the compression of the air in the lungs to the level needed to initiate vocal fold vibration. The movements of the chest and abdominal wall that are responsible for this are known as pre-phonatory posturing. The information that we need in order to understand the relative contributions of the chest and abdominal walls in breathing is the relationship between the slopes of the two traces. This is difficult to assess by eye, but we can plot one against the other in a Konno-Mead diagram, which is intuitively much easier to understand. In order to interpret the diagram, you need only remember that downward movement represents a falling of the chest, and that movement to the left represents compression by the abdominal wall. But it is important to note that there is no time dimension on the diagram, so that there is no indication of how long each phase lasts. The pattern of breathing used in singing produces large open loops on the Konno-Mead diagram. By contrast, during quiet breathing, these are very small. The diagrams contain two types of reference line. The relaxation line indicates the movement as the chest falls and the abdomen recoils without any muscular action, for example, during a sigh. The second reference is the isovolume line. Any movement parallel to this line represents a relative adjustment of the chest and abdominal walls that produces no overall change in lung volume. Here is a summary of how the diagram is interpreted. In order to demonstrate the significance of Konno-Mead diagrams, we will use them to compare two breathing strategies. We will call the first one abdomen-led breathing. On the left is the trace from the plethysmograph, and on the right a Konno-Mead plot of one of the breaths. The circle on the plot represents the beginning of the sung phrase, and the square marks its end. The easiest way to appreciate what is going on is to watch the trace being created. Let's watch that again. Now we will look at another set of traces in which the singer uses a different breathing strategy, which we will call chest-led. Listen closely and see if you can hear a difference in the quality of the voice. Let's watch that again. Now let's analyse the Konno-Mead diagrams in more detail. First we have the inhalation, and next the pre-phonatory posturing, which is mainly due to contraction of the abdominal wall. During the sung phrase, both chest and abdominal movements are involved, but first one and then the other predominates. If we now look at the second strategy, we can see that this time inhalation involves a more marked rising of the chest. Pre-phonatory posturing is again carried out by abdominal contraction. However, the breath is expelled during singing almost entirely by a downward movement of the chest. The Konno-Mead diagrams, therefore, not only present a clear view of what is going on during the two breathing strategies, but also provides a graphic representation of their differences.